A follow-up lesson would be one about giving directions around the school. And this one I felt like we could have a lot of fun with. But first, let's start with some input. For some input, I found some different tour videos and photos on school websites that were basically showing off their campus, their buildings, their classrooms, and what they had to offer. I found this made some really interesting input because they saw some different classrooms and schools that either looked similar or maybe they had something even better than what our students had. But it gave them a different perspective of what other ones can look like, and at the same time, we were creating a list of different places in the school. So I might show a picture and say, this is their art classroom. Do we have an art classroom? Yes. How many do we have? Is it bigger than this classroom or is it smaller than this classroom? These are just a few ways we can get some comparisons in and talk about them in the target language. So now to build on that vocabulary of the places, I'm going to start adding in a little bit about the directions or where something might be located. So I'm going to bring in some maps that are from the different schools. And just a side note here, I noticed there were not a lot of maps available for a school, like a high school, but I did find a lot more maps for like a university or a college that are from the target culture. So you might want to expand your search to actually look at some of these as well. But then showing them this map, and I could ask them questions like, where is the cafeteria? And give them some simple ways to answer, such as on the left, or to the right, at the top, at the bottom, or maybe even northeast, southwest. But giving them some simple answers so we can build on that in the next activity. To reinforce some of those words we just used, like left and right, straight ahead, this is a game that I modified that they loved playing in class. This is called left, right, center. And normally you have 3 dice and they have these dots and L, R, and C written on them. However, I didn't have enough of those for the classroom, so I modified this where you can actually just use the numbers. I highly suggest, if you don't know how to play this, that you read more, click that link, and go watch a video of someone actually playing it. But here's the general idea. You have 3 chips in front of you. You roll your 3 dice. If you get a 1, then you pass your dice to the left. And at the same time, the student would say in the target language, to the left. If you roll a 2, then they would push it straight ahead. It goes into the pot, and then they would say in the target language, straight ahead. If they roll a 3, they say and pass it to the right. And if they roll a 4, a 5, or a 6, it stays in front of them. Then they pass the dice to the next person. The winner of the game is the person that has the last chip in front of them at the very end. And sometimes I would give a little treat for that. Or, sometimes it's just the glory of winning. But I found that this was a way to get some repetition working with these words that could be really helpful when later they're going to have to do some directions. So after they did this, we actually had a time where they did a scavenger hunt kind of activity through the classroom. I made up these signs and it gave them clues, and it was in the target language, and now we were adding in the verbs. So it was like, go down the hall, turn right, go 3 classes straight ahead, stop. Where are you? And then there would be a sign that would have the directions to get to the next spot. And I sent them out in small teams, and we timed them. And then the team that was able to complete it the quickest got a little pat on the back there. But then that was a way that they could start reading the directions in order to complete a task. Now, to put together a little bit of everything that they did for the day is to create a welcome and information packet for guests. So this is where I talked about earlier. See if your school will let your students create something that could actually be used for international guests or newcomers to the school. And I had a few tasks for them to work on. So I basically gave them that scenario, and they got permission to go around school, take pictures of the main places. They labeled them in the target language. And actually, I'd encourage that you ask another department maybe to collaborate and make some permanent signs or semi-permanent signs to hang up in the target language. Next task, they would write out some directions to these main places so it's written. And task 3, make a tour video talking about the school. And you might want to refer back to, now remember, we watched those tour videos at the beginning of class. What made those videos good? Okay, try and also include that in your video. And then you could move on to doing some role playing where they might not know where the person wants to go and see if they can give the directions on the spot. All right, and the last part here, just to kind of wrap it up for these intercultural connections and reflections. They may reflect on needing directions or an experience they've actually had, because we got to be honest, it's hard to give directions in L1, and it's even harder in L2 whenever you have limited vocabulary. Or they've seen a lot of new places. This might give them some new insights. Or lastly, they might want to reflect more on what can a school do to be more welcoming to newcomers. Alright, so hopefully that gives you a few ideas on how you could do a lesson about giving directions around the school. And as always, we would love to hear in the comments below what you would do to modify or add to this.